Hey everybody, it's Norm from Tested. Welcome back to Projections, where this week I'm going to be reviewing the latest game from Insomniac Games. It's the big AAA VR title, Stormland. We've been waiting for this for so long. Now, Insomniac has a lot of experience in the VR space. They previously made Edge of Nowhere, as well as The Unspoken, which was one of the first games to make use of hand presence and the Oculus Touch controllers. And Stormland is unique in that it's one of the first big open world narrative-driven games for virtual reality. Now, the idea behind Stormland is that you're a robot, and you and other robots are on this alien planet in the far future. Humans have explored the planet, they've set up research base and outposts, but it's even after the humans have left, there are no humans in the game. So you and the other fellow research robots contend with an antagonist, the mysterious Tempest, and it's really your job to kind of figure out what happened, rescue the other robots, and explore the Stormland. It's an open world game, but it's not open world in the same way that a Zelda Breath of the Wild would be, or a Fallout game would be. It's actually more akin to a Wind Waker game. So the way the map is laid out is that you start off on the ground level of the Stormland. You're on the planet's surface, there's a main hub of operations, and you take essentially what's in like an elevator, space elevator, that goes up into the atmosphere to reach the different 3 or 4 different strata, the levels of the Stormland, and each of those become the open world areas that you explore. Now, each of these levels, each of these strata are made up by a series of islands. It's not one continuous space. These islands are separated not by wire, but by clouds. And so getting around this open world is really interesting. There are 2 main types of locomotion that I think they do really well in this game. One, there's traversing those between those islands, which is a combination of running around with free locomotion and grappling or climbing on really any structure, whether it's a rock or a tree or a human outpost space. If you can see it, you can probably get there. But there's also then the cloud surfing, and that's how you get between the islands themselves. The game calls it slipstreaming. This is a really interesting locomotion mechanic for VR, because once you jump off of an island onto the clouds, you basically put your hands out in a Superman pose and you glide and surf on the clouds themselves. It's really fun, and even when you're doing the surfing, there are things to do. You're evading some obstacles, you can activate speed bursts, or you can unlock the ability to launch yourself hundreds of meters into the air to land on one of those islands or on a Tempest platform where you complete your mission. I found the game to be incredibly freeing and very, very comfortable. I think it's one of the Stormland's biggest achievements in that they get this open world exploration locomotion right. There are a lot of locomotion settings in it, comfort settings, so that even though you're using that thumbstick and using free locomotion to walk around, you can change your vignetting, you can change distance of the HUD from your face, and I found it super comfortable, almost no learning curve to get around the world. So what is there to do in the world of Stormland, and what do these missions entail? As part of the exploration, you're not only looking for loot like containers full of weapons or health packs, but you're also harvesting parts of the world as well, all the fauna and foliage. You can shoot your beam into these metallic elements that then harvest alloy, and different types of alloy then let you get redeemed for different parts that you can upgrade to, or ammo, or new weapons, or you can actually grab plants and you can study. There are tons of different plants in that world, and some of them you can grab and harvest as well. It's really fun to go around finding different trees, grabbing the fruit, squeezing them, and then harvesting them so that you can get the mana essentially to upgrade your robot chassis. So as you're finding loot and collecting these resources in the world, you get to upgrade your body. And a couple of different things that you get to develop in terms of your character, your robot. Your chassis itself has a bunch of different upgrade points. So once you collect enough of these Aeon Buds or mana, you go to an upgrade station and you can select points of your body where you can upgrade things like the ability to collect more mana, or new locomotion mechanics like the ability to vault yourself off of the Stormland, off of the clouds while you're slipstreaming, or doing things like a double jump, or increasing ammo capacity, or retrieving health from enemies as you fight them. Lots of different upgrades that so much so that you can't unlock them all with one play session through the campaign. You have to really play it over and over again to explore all the different avenues for those upgrades. Also upgradable are the weapons, and there's a pretty good weapon selection here. There's your standard SMG, there's a carbine, shotgun, sniper rifle, grenade launcher, and minigun, and each of these weapons have 5 tiers of upgradability, which you can discover in the world as you're progressing through the campaign and your engagements, or you can then unlock by buying the blueprints. The weapons themselves are incredibly animated, they're gorgeous, and they handle really well. They're 2 hands for most of the weapons to stabilize your aim, and the animation that happens when you grip them with 1 hand or 2 hand is really cool, as well as the ability to tear weapons apart once you've used up the ammo. The weapons themselves don't wear down, but if you find SMG on the ground and it has no ammo, you can tear it apart and you get its alloy, or you get the ammo refilled to the current weapons that you have holstered on your body. I thought there could be a little bit more variety in terms of the weapon design. They're just basically different skins when you go from a level 1 SMG to a level 5 SMG, but I thought there might be opportunities for them to vary them in terms of maybe ammo capacity or upgradable damage or more variety in firing rate or accuracy or cooldown to make it a little bit more like a Borderlands style of variety and variability in the weapons that you find in the world. But the interaction design, not only with the weapons, but also with the world, that's where I think the game really shines. The 2-handed grips, the aiming down the scope, tearing the weapons apart, all of that feels great. And it's not easy in VR for developers to get that stuff to feel right. When you walk up to a crate and you see a handle and you put your robot hand on it, and the way it latches on and the way you can turn these handles and tear apart containers to find new weapons, all of that just feels natural. There's no button pressing to unlock these things, to open canisters. It's made for VR, and it feels like it takes advantage of hand presence and your physical body presence in VR too. The combat with the enemies I found also to be really fun, and also took advantage of the freedom to climb, vault, and hover almost everywhere. That allows for fun exploration and the ability to approach these enemy encounters from any vantage point. So you might turn on your scanner as you land on an island, see a group of enemies on a base or on a platform, and you can attack them literally from any direction. So many times I would find myself climbing up a platform and hiding on the underside of the platform, seeing the highlighted enemies, and then crawling to where they're not looking when they're following their routes, and then ambushing them or jumping in, guns blazing, much like a robot Rambo. I mentioned earlier there's a scanner view. You just tap the temple of your head and it activates this augmented HUD, which highlights in the world the resources and the fruit that you can harvest, the alloy, as well as the enemies. You see them as these bright outlines behind platforms, behind mountain, behind fauna. And I thought that made the combat a little bit too easy. I wish there was design ability or the enemy's ability to disrupt your scanner view, because having it turned on for most of the game, and you can have it on for the game, there's no cooldown for any of that. Just let me run through the game, know where every enemy was, and never feel surprised by any of the combat encounters. The AI of the enemies isn't particularly smart or tactical. They go along their predetermined routes and they can overwhelm you with firepower or their shields, but I found it too easy at times to come in with guns blazing, with 2 shotguns out, and with the ability, if I turned on the ability to steal health from them as I'm firing at them, I could go through almost any encounter without thinking too much about it. I almost wish the enemies had the ability to nerf you, to tone down your abilities, whether that's the ability to climb anywhere or your scanning ability, to make it more difficult or a little more challenging. Most of the challenge in the combat came from running out of ammo, which is fine as a game design decision for balance, but I think they could have gone a little bit further. I've read that Insomniac had previously designed the game so that you couldn't climb every single obstacle or every single object in the world. There were just these color-coded objects that were designated as the ones you could actually climb. And I'm happy that they did enable the ability for you to climb and hold and grapple onto anything. I think that makes traveling around the world a lot more fun, but I also think that makes the combat a little bit almost too open in a way, in that the enemies aren't smart enough to adapt to that, and that you're a little bit overpowered in these engagements. I felt like the encounters would be thrilling, just in the sheer amount of action and explosions. The animations again look incredible, and the effects look great, but it was never hugely rewarding in the same way that like a Rec Room quest would be so difficult that I would have to play it, a dozen times and really plan out every single enemy and encounter and firefight to make it feel like I really earned that victory. When you're not in combat, you do have a lot of time to really explore the world and appreciate the gorgeous world building they did here. I mean, the production design on Stormland is incredible. The animations with the NPC robots you encounter, there's a lot of dialogue, a lot of personality in those robots. It's so cool. Even looking at your own body and moving around, this is some of the best animation and best production design, best graphics of almost any VR game I've played. The scope and scale of the world I think is sufficiently massive. I do think there could be more islands to explore in this world, but there is plenty of stuff to discover. There are these remnants of the human presence in that planet and on the Stormland that you do uncover, things that don't often make sense, almost give it a little bit of a Twilight Zone or a Lost vibe to it. And not all of this is explained, at least in the campaign. The game is a little bit of a system hog. There are higher system requirements than on other VR games, and it's best played right now on the Rift S, not just the standard Oculus Rift. I can't wait to see how this looks though over Oculus Link on the higher resolution of the Oculus Quest, and I think it does work with a little bit of patching with Revive if you have a Steam VR system and want to try it on that too. I'm really curious how this looks like on a Valve Index. I haven't had the opportunity to play it on that yet. The campaign is a little bit shorter than I expected. It's about 3.5 hours, and it really feels like a long tutorial that gets you acclimated to the rules of the world and combat as you elevate on the strata in the Stormland. I kind of wish it was longer. I felt like by the end of it, I was asking myself, is this it? Is that the campaign? But then when you finish the campaign, you unlock then what's called the cycling world. The game actually has this rogue-lite element in that you're going through parts of this campaign over and over again, and they reset it every week. The same 4 layers of the Stormland get reset on Tuesdays. All the strata will have the same kind of flavor and visual design, but the placement of the islands will be different and the missions will be mixed up. Also reset will be your upgrades. So you do start back at 0 every time. You have your experience and you get a chance to complete and get to the end of the Terminus in your play session. Then when it resets, all the enemies will be a little bit more difficult and you'll have elevated to the next level. The end of these instances is called the Terminus. It's this top level, and I found that to be almost a little bit anticlimactic as well. There's no giant big boss battle, and you get glimpses of the Tempest military on that level that I wish they explored further, from drop ships and other aerial structures I really wanted to be able to get to, but just are a little more decor than explorable environments. I do think there's a little bit of a missed opportunity in the campaign for more Borderlands-style loot variability and weapons drops to make those repeated play sessions more enticing. I want to be able to not just get the level 5 shotgun and the level 5 carbine, which I know are going to be my go-to weapons, but find some obscure weapon or some obscure variant that took me several play sessions to find that becomes my favorite weapon of the game. I never ended up finding the weapons being the reason I'm replaying Stormland. It's really just getting more difficult enemies. Now, you can complete Stormland and the campaign by yourself. The entire game is playable just as a solo adventure, but I found the most fun playing Stormland in multiplayer, and I played it with Jeremy through the campaign and also through an instance 1 week of the cycling world. And originally Insomniac had talked about 3-player multiplayer, but I think toning it down to 2 players feels right and feels balanced, because even with just 2 players, the game ended up again feeling almost a little bit too easy to get through. Never really felt that it was more challenging with 2 players, or that we got increased number of combat encounters, things I do think would have made playing with 2 players a little more fun. And the AI, again, wasn't challenging enough to really push the limits of co-op assaults. There's great spatial audio in the game, so when you have another person that you're playing with and you can just drop into their middle of their game session, you can get a great sense of where they are, and you can do coordinated attacks. That's still fun, or you can divvy up the exploration. You know, many times Jeremy and I would drop into a strata and go on opposite paths, and we'd be able to communicate, and it's really easy to bring up the multiplayer menu and click warp and teleport immediately to where the other player is to join in on one of their bits of action. You can even do that while they're in the slipstream, which is quite fun. Oh god, lots of enemies. A lot of fun going through Stormland, playing the campaign, like I said, 1 week of that cycling world. And it really proves the case that VR can be suitable for an open world game design. You know, you can have interesting locomotion mechanics that let you traverse the world quickly, and also with the amount of detail where you feel like you are interacting with a real space. That was some of the best part about Stormland, was climbing up to the top of a mountain and just enjoying the vista and seeing how far you can look. I see that ship over there, maybe I can try to vault and climb onto that ship. That stuff was awesome. And I really appreciate the fine-tuning of the interaction models that Insomniac had to do to make it feel right as well. Make you feel like you really are embodying this ultra cool, powerful robot with weapons holstered on your back, at your hips, with objects that you can grab in the world and interact with. That isn't easy to get right in VR. And I think they spent so much of their time getting that part right. The thing I feel like I'm missing in Stormland is depth. The game, the campaign at least, is a little bit short, and I think they're banking on the replayability in the future, which at this point we're just a little bit unsure of. You know, the game at week 1, you're gonna get 8 hours of solid gameplay, but at the end of week 10, I don't know if people are going to be playing this over and over again, the same way that people are still making their way through Asgard's Wrath, a 40-hour single-player narrative. Stormland is out now, and I think it'll be really interesting once the Oculus Link comes out to see how that looks on the Quest, and if you Google around, you can find ways to play it in Steam VR as well. But thanks for watching Projections this week, and let us know what you think about Stormland if you're playing it on your system, and we'll be back next time with more coverage. See you then.